The biggest one for me, like we kind of touched on this a little bit, but when women are left to their own devices, they almost always choose poorly when it comes to the guys they're going to date or marry or have kids with. But on that same token, it's never their fault, right? So I don't know how many times we heard the term narcissist or some of this therapy speak has infected the minds of people. Everybody thinks they're
too is another one that came up a lot. Like he was abusive,
emotionally abusive, and we would ask for more clarity. And you could kind of tell that there was one girl in particular who said he's like, oh, he was emotionally abusive, and he didn't hit me, but he punched a wall like near my head. It's like, okay, well, she took a couple of times to really tell us that story, because you could tell we were like, well, we're not buying this emotional abuse story, because again, it's a get out of jail free card. There are certain things now, sexual assault or emotional abuse or abuse in general, where they're just these magical buzzwords that women can throw out, and then you're not allowed to question it. You just have to take it at face value. And if you even ask a question, you're a monster, and now you're a essay denier.
How dare you challenge me, right?
Yeah, how dare you even ask for any proof, or you don't believe somebody when they're just saying something, and there's two sides to every story. So those are the biggest ones for me. Like, no accountability, terrible at making choices, but clearly not willing to ever take it. One of my favorite moments we ever had, where we kind of went around the panel and we asked about what's one point in your last relationship that you messed up on and that you can take accountable right now, and none of them could do it. Like, oh, like I should have left earlier. That's not, I didn't do anything wrong. I just stayed too long. That's me holding myself accountable. We've had married women on before. The women that were married, I can't think of a single instance where the married women were more masculine or more loud or more off-putting or more, annoying than the single women. Like, the married women were almost always more feminine, always more soft-spoken, always more are in happier relationships than the single women who, would give off these very masculine, domineering traits. And that's one of the things that I would try to talk to them about. It's like, well, listen, just listen to the way that you're talking to us. This idea that if you meet a guy that you can just turn this off and you can all of a sudden become this sweet, feminine, soft princess. Like, I don't buy it, because the way you're talking to us, I can tell this is how you talk to people on a normal everyday basis. So this idea that women think that they can, their femininity is conditional. That's always it's never on them to lead with femininity. It's always, I need to find a guy that makes me feel safe and feminine, and then I can do that, which doesn't make any sense. Women will protect their reputation at any cost. They'll lie about it. We talked about that. Women who come to us asking for help are often too old or too behind in the looks department, or both, to really do anything about it. And they unfortunately have to either drastically reduce their standards and take what they can get, or they will be alone. Talked about daddy issues and the lack of a father figure being the number one, besides the obvious ones, like I would say like violent women, which is just a non-starter. And then like the tattoos and piercings, like so many chicks we brought on heavily tattooed. And you're starting to see this more and more with women in their 20s and even in their 30s, which was not a thing, probably as frequently as even 10, 15 years ago. And then only a very small subset of women will actually take the advice and do something with it. I've had a couple girls that would message me after, or maybe even like a couple weeks later. They're like, hey, just want to let you know, I really took seriously a lot of those comments. The advice was something I didn't want to hear at first, but now that I've, let my emotions calm down, I understand you guys are right. And clearly what I'm doing is not working. But for the most part, like, you just can't tell these girls anything. And no matter what we tell them, they're going to go and do their own thing, and they're going to find out. And look, let's be 100% honest. Most of these girls are going to be fine. This is another thing. Like, I know guys out there have these revenge fantasies where they're like, oh, like these girls are going to be single and they're garbage. It's like, there are enough guys out there that don't know this stuff. They'll find somebody. They'll find somebody. So again, like, reserve that energy, guys. Like, stop wishing on the downfall of people that don't know who you are and don't care about you, and just stop wasting time and mental energy on that, because it might make you feel better in that moment. But the reality is, like, it's better just to let that stuff go, man. So yeah, it was and then just from the recruiting aspect, just doubling down on what we already know, that women don't have any sense of duty. They have no sense of honor. They have no sense of honoring their commitments, doing what they say they're going to do. They reserve the right to change their mind at any given time for any reason without explanation. And I knew this from previous like dating experiences. I work with a lot of guys that still can't seem to wrap their minds around this, but there's no you can't hold women accountable. It's not really a thing. Women don't care about the opinions of men that they're not sleeping with. They just don't. They don't care, right? So I could go like, oh, wow, like, I can't believe you didn't show up to the show last night. Like, wow, like, you really left me hanging there, this and that. And like, even if I didn't never do that, but even if I did, they wouldn't care, because it's like, okay, buddy, like, bye, buzz off. Like, so that was part of the frustrating, because there were times where I did want to lash out, and I want to be like, listen, you ruined the show because you didn't show up. You canceled. You didn't wait. You waited to the very last minute to say anything. But again, it's just, they don't care. And that's something that guys got to understand. Like, water's wet, sun's hot, girls are going to flake. That's life, man.
Yeah. So there you guys have it, man. There's there's a year summarized of ladies' night and why we're not doing it anymore. Again, our focus is really to help guys. Women asked for a show. They didn't watch it. They didn't take it seriously. It was mostly guys shitting on them in the comments. And, it just, all it did was it confirmed everything that I already knew. Some things were like, okay, certain things are more important than I thought. Certain things are maybe less important. But I don't know. Did you learn anything new, man?
Nothing new, just reinforced.
I think that reputation management was probably the biggest new thing for me. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't huge, but it's like, you'd actually see them in real time make up shit. Like, you could tell that they were fucking lying to you, making up shit to try to preserve their value and to protect their reputation. Yeah,
and a lot of it would just talk out of their ass too. Yeah. I mean, going back to what I was talking about when this girl Rain was like, yeah, I would share a high value guy over being settled with a guy that wanted to be exclusive to me. And the other girls on the panel were like, oh, I would never do that. I'm like, well, first of all, let's be honest. Neither one of you two women have ever been in the room with a guy that's high status or that had those kind of options like she has. And, one of them was pissed that I said that. And the other one was like, oh, okay, that's actually a good point. So it's easy to say that you wouldn't do that to try to protect your reputation, but how would you even know? You'd never even experienced that or been in that situation. But yeah, I would say nothing really, really new, just doubling down on what we already know. Like, I think the daddy issues is the single biggest indicator of how she's going to turn out. And if she's going to listen to you, she's going to follow your lead. If she's going to disrespect you or not, or have respect for you as a man. And again, just to double down, this is the first lesson I ever learned from you, where this is the story with my ex, crazy daddy issues. I talked about this on Fresh and Fit, but the realization that a lot of guys come to is that if a girl has this red flag, it doesn't matter how masculine you are. It doesn't matter how virtuous you are. It doesn't matter how good of a guy you are or good of a leader you are. She's not going to respect it. She's not going to care, because she did not grow up seeing those traits as a positive thing, and is not going to model her future man after those things. So it's just find a girl that values those traits and that is going to think those things are important. And then there you go. That's a good step in the right direction.
All right, guys, I really hope that you enjoyed that clip. If you want to check out the full-length podcast episode, you can find that right over here. Also, make sure you visit my website over here, where you'll find my supplements, the opportunity to book me privately one-on-one for coaching, and most importantly, my new School of Unplugging, which you'll find on the Courses tab. Newer to the channel? Hit subscribe.